Ciao everyone and welcome back to our channel. My name is Eleonora, I'm a registered migration agent here in Perth and the agency I manage is Green Wings Migration. In today's video, I want to discuss for you the transition from Visa 494 Provisional Regional Visa to Visa 191 Permanent Residency application. If you were curious about the title of today's episode, it probably means that you are on a 494 visa or you are thinking about applying for a 494 visa. So if you would like to know all the details about this process, please follow the previous video we recorded with all the details and insights about this pathway. Today, we're going to focus, as I said, on the transition to your permanent residency application, which occurs after you have held Visa 494 for at least 3 years. So let's do a little step back. Visa 494 is a sponsorship option. So at some point during your migration journey, you would have encountered an employer who's willing to support you and who's willing to nominate you for this regional option. Bear in mind, I put my accent on the regional nature of this visa. It means that you cannot get Visa 494 in the metropolitan areas, which are considered to be Sydney, Brisbane, and Melbourne. Perth, if you live here, it's a city, of course. Adelaide is a city, of course. Same goes for Hobart, same goes for Darwin, but they are considered regional centers, so you can get Visa 494s in those areas. Once the visa is approved, it's going to be granted for 5 years, and you have to keep the visa for at least 3 years before you can transition to the permanent residency Visa 191. How does this happen? So essentially, after holding the visa for 3 years, you will need to demonstrate that you met your residency criterion, your income criterion, and also your sponsorship work criterion. Residency is pretty self-explanatory. You must have been residing in the designated regional area of Australia for at least 3 years before the 191 request can be lodged in IMEI account. You can change regional areas, okay? So you are not obliged to stay in the same regional area where the visa was originally granted, but you must make sure that you always move within regional areas, never go to the metro city. A question I always receive is, what happens if I go on holiday? Will I lose my eligibility for permanent residency? Well, obviously not. So you might lose eligibility if you completely relocate somewhere else. But if you go on holiday for a short amount of time, you come back, you maintain your ongoing residency because you have maybe rented a place or purchased a house, don't worry, you maintain your eligibility for permanent residency. Second criterion that you must meet is to have worked always in your occupation. Again, bear in mind that I said occupation, not necessarily working for the same sponsor. This is very important and it marks a great difference between Visa 482 and Visa 494. In fact, in Visa 482, you must work for the same employer sponsor for at least 2 years before being able to achieve permanent residency. Visa 494 offers a bigger flexibility. So you must work always in the same occupation, but you can change employer. It goes without saying that the new employer must transition your visa through a new nomination lodgement. And as long as you have your 3 years of experience in the same occupation within the regional area, you will be good to go. The third criterion that you must meet, it's about the income. Since you are sponsored on a 494 visa, there is an assumption that at lodgement of the 494 nomination, you were engaged under a certain salary. And this salary would need to be at least the minimum threshold for sponsorship migration. This is currently $73,150 plus super and is due to increase every year. So the first year of your 494, certainly you were given at least this minimum. And then by the time that you keep working in your occupation, you might be offered salary increases. When you transition to permanent residency with Visa 191, you will need to give evidence of your income statements. And the income statement should suggest that you were paid according to the legislative requirements applicable to Visa 494, and in all cases that you were paid full-time wages. So just to recap, for Visa 494 you have to keep it for 3 years before being able to transition to permanent residency. During these 3 years, you must have lived in the regional designated area, and you must also have been working on a full-time basis and earning full-time wages in the occupation that you were nominated for. So let's say that you have achieved your criteria, you check them, you tick all the boxes, and you just want now to prepare the application. What do you need to prepare? What kind of documents are required to apply for 191 visa? Surely enough, you have to present again all your ID documents. Don't give for granted, I should say never give for granted that the department knows you. They certainly have a record of your persona in their system, but your documents may change, case officers may change, the systems may change. So every time that you apply for a new visa, you are required to present all over again your ID documents. They will also obviously ask evidence that supports you meeting the 3 criteria that we discussed before. So as far as residency is concerned, you should give evidence of all your rental agreements, all your utility bills that were issued under the different addresses that you resided at during the 3 years. You can use bank statements, for example, mobile phone contracts, or electricity utilities, power utilities notices, your driver's license, your car registration renewal letters, everything that is issued under your name and that places you in an address that is within the boundaries of the designated regional area. The second criterion, which is the one about salary, it requires you to present your notice of assessment and income statements. Notice of assessment is the one that you receive once you have lodged your tax return, and it's basically the confirmation of your taxable income. When you fill in the application in IMI account, you will see that there is a warning sign. The warning sign tells you that you should erase your TFN number from the income statement. From the notice of assessment. This is because the department wants to maintain privacy in some way. So you should submit the notice of assessment, blocking out or erasing the TFN number, which normally appears on the top right corner of that document. And then obviously the third criterion is that you must have held the visa for 3 years, which is pretty self-explanatory. You have to wait until 3 years from the date the visa was granted before lodging the 191 application. Some other questions that we receive are around police certificates and medicals. So will you be required to sit your medicals again? Yes, you may be required to. It also depends on, what countries did you visit on holiday while holding the 494 visa. If you visited countries that are at high risk of tuberculosis, then probably you will need to sit the medicals again. And the same goes for police certificates. You might be requested to present the police certificates again, surely from Australia, but also from other countries. This is connected to the fact that the justice system works with different speeds in different countries. So something that might have not been recorded on your police certificates 3 years ago when you first applied and received your 494 might now come out. So definitely it's always a good thing to be proactive, just apply for your police certificates one more time and just resupply them. Will you need to supply new English test? Likely not. Will you need to supply skills assessment again? Likely not either. And something very important is to remember that there is no age limitation in Visa 191. So it's important that you get Visa 494 before you turn 45 years of age, but when it comes to transitioning to 191, you might be over and above the 45 years benchmark. You will still be able to lodge a valid visa and be granted the visa as well. Last thing to discuss about Visa 191 is the time frame. So we said, how long do I have to wait before applying for the visa? As I said, at least 3 years on a 494 visa, and always if you are sure that you meet the additional criteria that you must demonstrate for Visa 191. How long does it take to receive the visa? Well, this is a good question. So theoretically, Visa 494 and 191 are regional options, so they should receive priority processing from the department. However, we still see that processing times go anywhere from 7 to 9, sometimes even 10 months. So unfortunately, you need to be patient while waiting for the 191 visa to be processed. And a good way to make sure that the process is as quickly as it can be is to provide all the documents up front to avoid any possible request of further information, which obviously will delay of additional at least 28 days your processing. Last question, can you leave the employer while you wait for visa 191 to be granted? Well, you can always leave your employer. Okay, we said before, so on a 494 visa, you are not linked to the same employer. You can transition to a different business, provided the new business lodges a new nomination for you, new nomination is approved, and you can go and work for the new employer once the nomination is approved. But while you wait on a 191 visa, why would you do that? I mean, it's expensive for the business to transition you from one business to the other. So the receiving business may not be willing to transition your nomination from the previous employer to them, knowing that in a few months' time you may receive your visa 191 grant. Still possible, but maybe definitely be honest and upfront with the new employer just to make sure that you start with the right path, and disclose the fact that you have applied for your permanent residency. The permanent residency is on its way, and you may negotiate a way to start working for the new employer once the 191 has been approved. As usual, we remain available to reply to all your questions and doubts. Please feel free to ask your questions under this video in the comment section, or if you prefer, you can send us an email at info@greenwingsmigration.com.au. We're always very happy to help you out and to discuss your circumstances and find the best visa pathway for you and your family. See you next time.